Malachi talked about how he was on the phone with the hospital officials, and he kept asking, they kept saying somebody shot her in her face, and told him in graphic detail at 5 o'clock in the morning what happened to his mother, but never told him who. Shadia and Jimmy went to the house at 6 a.m. that morning when law enforcement was all around. They kept asking the questions. Who did this? What happened? Nobody told them that it was the sheriff's deputy, Sean Grayson, who had shot her in the face. They seemed to be led to believe that it was some crowd or something, because they started asking questions. Every time they would ask questions, they would be given questions. What was the history between her and the neighbor? And so it was troubling. So we wanted an investigation, and I say the family passionately wanted an investigation into that there, because they are suspicious of everybody and everything. Wouldn't you be if this happened to your daughter, your mother? And then we talked with the Department of Justice because we want to know more about the history of this sheriff's deputy who so flagrantly and senselessly shot and killed Sonya Massey with no remorse, no humanity after he did it. Evidenced by the video. People contacted our office since we've had the press conferences, Teresa, and this is why we continue to try to fight not only in the court of law, but in the court of public opinion, because we know we have to fight to get justice. We don't assume that it's just going to happen for black people in America. Even when we got all the evidence in the world, all the visual evidence in the world, we still don't take it for granted. We know the lessons of Laquan McDonald and how the officer got a slap on the wrist, even though that evidence was on video, ocular proof of the crime. And we have been made aware of that. There were some unsubstantiated allegations of excessive force by this officer allegedly on 2 occasions. One dealing with an African American who received injuries from allegedly a tasing, but regrettably, before the findings were concluded, the individual wouldn't cooperate because apparently he was dealing with the criminal charges, and so he apparently didn't trust the system to do right by him. So we know that that individual is now considering cutting forward. Even though you have to understand, a lot of people, a lot of minorities in America don't come forward for many reasons. They don't call the police for many reasons because things normally don't turn out good for us when we call the police. Obviously, Sonya Massey is exhibit 1, but we hoping and encouraging him to come forward and tell what happened with his interaction with Deputy Sean Grayson. And then the other individual we know is out there. We don't know what this situation is, but apparently they also complained about excessive, unnecessary force inflicted by the deputy. And the question really goes back to what Sonya's father, Mr. Wilburn, said. Well, the 2 DUIs, with the reprimand from the Army over serious misconduct, with the 6 different law enforcement agencies in 4 years, with whatever answers he answered in the questionnaires when he was interviewing for the job, when you asked about why did you leave this department, why did you resign from this, were there red flags missed? And should he have been hired in the first place by the sheriff's department? Those questions only get louder. You know, Malachi and Cliff Jones and us, we asked that question, you know, DUI guilty convictions? How do you even have a driver's license? Much less getting a job as a sheriff's deputy. Many questions to be answered, and so we will be sending the formal letter to the Department of Justice with those things that we have been made aware of, and they have promised the family that they will work with the local agencies and they will try to get answers to all of these allegations of other instances of excessive force. And before you hear from Uncle Raymond Massey and Shadia Massey, and finally from Malachi Massey, we want to take a few minutes to go over the autopsy report because I think it's important. And please, I'll tell you when to turn it over. And you all, I want to thank State Attorney John Heiser for making sure he got the autopsy to the family for transparency and that he's provided it to you all. Even though the family takes great exception with the Sheriff's Department, they have been very grateful that Mr. Millhouse's office has tried to be very transparent and very respectful to them as victims. And so he made sure that this autopsy report was released, and it should give you a lot of the things, answer a lot of the questions that you all asked previously. The biggest thing on the autopsy are the findings, and we will go through those. The conclusion is based on the information available to me and on the autopsy findings. It is my opinion that Sonya Massey, a 36-year-old black woman, died as a result of a gunshot wound to the head. And then it goes on to in more detail. And it says the gunshot wound of the head, A, the entrance was beneath the left eye. The injury, proliferation of the left internal I'm looking at this word because I know. So it's not subdural artery, but it's an artery that is the blood vessel right beneath her eye. The exit, posterior left surface of the upper neck. Associated injuries, skull fracture, subdural hemorrhaging. Direction, front to back, downward and slightly right to left. Range, no soot or gunpowder stippling on the skin. If you could turn it over. And I would tell you, they have an anatomical model that is very important. Here, obviously, have Sonya Massey with a beautiful smile. But you have, as they said, the entry right beneath the left eye. And then they talk about how the exit is posterior left surface of the upper neck, below the ear, below her hairline. Now, why this is so significant, is it confirms that Deputy Sheriff Grayson shot in a downward trajectory. He shot in a downward trajectory. This autopsy findings, coupled with the video where we see her ducking, saying, "Sorry, sir, sorry." He shot when she's making a motion coming up. That's how you get the downward trajectory. And you see on the video his arm, he aims down. He literally aims down. You see his arms brace in a downward trajectory. And we know that he walked 2 to 3 steps to his right, out away from the counter, where it was, we believe, from objective observation, to get a better shot at Sonya Massey. And when Sonya Massey was staring at the barrel of his gun, we see on the video what she did. She stooped down and said, "Sorry, sorry." And we believe that the bullet, the shot, was shot while she was in a stupid position coming up. And that's how you get the downward trajectory. And the autopsy confirms what everybody already knew on the video, that this was just a senseless, unnecessary, excessive use of force. Completely unnecessary. Certainly not justified. I mean, how can you justify this? She's all of 5'1", 110 pounds. He's approximately 6'5" tall, approximately 260 pounds. Completely excessive. Completely excessive. And so we will continue to provide you updates, evidence as we get it, because we're not taking for granted that America won't see Sonya Massey like Deputy Sheriff Grayson saw her. We want to make sure that America sees her as a human being worthy of dignity and respect and consideration. We don't take it for granted. Your actions speak so loud we need not hear your words. And until we get a conviction and a sentence, we will continue to keep our foot on the gas and full steam ahead in fighting for justice for Sonya Massey. Full steam ahead. We understand far too often, especially as it relates to black women in America, there's not equal justice.
That's right.
There's not equal justice. And just like Sonya Massey said, and I continue to use her words, until this discriminatory criminal justice system gives full justice for the death of Sonya Massey, we rebuke you
Yes.
in the name of Jesus.
Yes.
Justice for Sonya Massey.
Justice for Sonya Massey. Justice for Sonya Massey. Justice for Sonya Massey.
Yes.
At this time, you will hear from Uncle Raymond Massey, Mr. Wilburn, her father, and Miss Donna, her mother, couldn't be with us today. And I really appreciate Malachi being here. This is very emotional. You've been seeing these pictures, even though he hasn't been able to watch the video, because that's his mama. You can't. Who wants to see their mother get killed like a animal? But even this was emotional for him, but he understood why we have to do it so we can get justice for his mother. So we're going to hear from Raymond Massey, and he's going to talk to you about the families continuing to struggle in these difficult times as they fight for justice. And then we're going to have his daughter talk to you. Mr. Raymond.
Thank you. I wanted to tell you that I love Sonya very much. She was a beautiful black woman. She is the only family member that me and my wife was talking last night about. I've never once seen her angry or mad. She was always full of love, and she loved her kids and God. I call my sister Donna, Malachi, Summer, and their parents daily. And it hurts me so bad that the last time I spoke with Malachi, he had told me he finally got a little rest, and that was just the day before yesterday. And I can tell you that his sister is having nightmares to the point where we have to check the room. That just makes me so angry to see my family hurt as they do. Also, it was so hard for me to see my daughter and my nephew had to go in the house and clean up blood. And that just hurts me to see my family hurt. And after what Attorney Crump had talked about the autopsy, that is exactly why he needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Thank you very much, Mr. Massey. Now you will hear from Shadia Massey, who is her first cousin, Raymond's daughter. And even though she has 3 other sisters, she was raised with Shadia, and they were like sisters. And Shadia was the first family member to arrive at the scene, and obviously the emotion of seeing your sister blood everywhere and how she tried to clean the blood up. So Malachi and Summer, her children, would never see their mother's blood when they came in the house to get their clothes. So should be ambassador try to speak to you from the heart.
Hello.
Hello.
Sonya meant the world to me. I love her so much. This tragedy has been too much on my family. Her kids, her daughter cannot sleep at night. She's in one household, I'm in another household. For her to go to the bathroom, she has to be on FaceTime. For her to get a drink of water, she has to call us before she get out her bed. You know, this is the hardest thing that we have ever been through as a Massey. It just breaks my heart that our family has to go through this.
That's all right.
Justice for Sonya Massey.
Justice for Sonya Massey. Justice for Sonya Massey.
And finally, we'll hear from Malachi, who was the first one notified that his mother had been killed And just as he explained just what they told him, you see, was the findings at autopsy. So, Malachi, you share what you know in your heart.
You know that they told me that my mom, she got shot in her eye and came out of that. And I don't know, like, I haven't been able to sleep for real. The only time I really feel comfortable sleeping is when I'm like just on the floor. I can't even sleep in my bed. Like, I don't know, like this is just, I really don't have words. Like I've been said, I don't have words for it. The first night I don't go to my mother's house, this happened. Wow. And I wonder if I was there, if he would have did anything to me. I don't know.
Wow.
For real.
Wow.
That's all I can say.
Are you and your sister staying with Uncle Jim? Or?
She lives with her father. I live with my father.
And I will say this, up until just a few weeks, Malachi's son was staying with their mother. She was having mental illnesses, and they made the decision it was best that they said to her father while she seeks help. And but both of them were going every day to check on their mother, do their mother. And the first time I talked to him, he was so distraught because he said, because I was working, this was the first day I didn't get to her, and this happens. And then the only other thing, Malachi, you may want to tell them is, they deserve compassion and consideration, not excessive, unjustified force, like we saw in that video. So we continue to try to say that Sonya Massey, life matters. She did. Man, when you hear Malachi talk about what kind of mother she was, how she worked overtime to help him get a car and everything so he can get a job, how she talked to him about balancing budgets and about the Bible and about trying to work and be responsible. I mean, she was doing her best to be a person who helped people in the world, especially her children. She did not deserve this. She did not deserve this. You got it. Thank you so much. We were trying to take some of your questions if you have any.
So, I'm sorry, Malachi was describing earlier on July 5th that there was a response that the same officers...
He said he believes it was the same officers. That's why he believed they knew she had was struggling from mental health.
And she had driven herself to the hospital for treatment?
She had sought consultation, yes.
She had not been in an inpatient program, but she was under the doctor's care?
Yeah, well, Mr. Wilborn said, remember another person, she was trying to get consultation because she was struggling from mental health.
So Malachi believes that the officers went to his mom's house earlier, I mean, the day before, July 5th, right?
Yes, July 5th.
July 5th, and do we know why they went to the house?
No, some incident happened. She was on the way to the hospital when she was talking to Malachi. But you talked to the officers too.
I talked to him and I was letting him know what was going on. I really don't know what happened before I got there, but I just know that I talked to them and let them know what's going on with my mother.
So you talked to one of the officers by phone? I'm just a little confused.
Personally.
Were they in the house?
They were at the house when you were at the house at the same time visiting your mom?
She drove herself to the hospital because I don't know why she did, but she drove herself to the hospital. When I got here, it was just the police there. My mother called me before all of this happened, and she told me the police were there. And when I got to her house, she wasn't there. She was calling me, telling me that she was driving herself to the hospital, and they were outside of the house.
So you don't know who called 911 or called?
So she drove herself to the hospital after the encounter with the police, right, that day? Okay.
And you told them about struggle with mental health.
Yeah, and I just tried to, like, the whole week, like, before all this happened, I've been trying to get her in the mental health. We actually did get her in the mental health place in St. Louis, but they let her come back. I don't know why. Why would they let her come back?
Praying for you, praying for you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You had referenced two separate people that had use of force complaints that were never officially filed. Were those?
I think they were filed, they had no determination.
Okay. But they were filed. And just to get, I guess, to my question, were both of those for Sangamon County specifically, or were those at previous law enforcement jobs?
We think it was a previous law enforcement job. One of them was an African-American citizen. We don't know the other one, but we know that the allegations is that they reported them. They have contacted our office. One of them did tell us he was a black man and told us it's the same guy, and that he, they ended up charging him and stuff, and he thinks they did that intentionally. And so apparently it's in his record that there were allegations made, but unsubstantiated. So we continue to try to get to the crux of that. The other individual called our office said that, they made an allegation, but nothing happened. And they didn't want to go further. They just prayed for the family and said, we have a right with him too.
So these were proactive calls from the people to you, not official. Okay.
Yeah, proactive calls.
Okay.
What has DOJ told you? You told us the other day that they had opened an investigation. They say we're monitoring, assessing, and following the criminal case.
Right. And then subsequent to that, we have been told to try to set a formal inquiry about these other allegations so they can look at who those citizens were, and if there was a common connection of the excessive force and on who did he inflict the excessive force allegedly on.
Okay, so you're familiar with this process.
Yeah.
They haven't set an investigation there, but they are assessing what your evidence you're sending.
So that apparently they've opened a file and they have come short of calling it an investigation. And they told us they would notify us that they're trying to get information just like we're trying to get information, and that they're working with the local officials to get information.
There's obviously plenty of questions about the incident with police arriving to her home earlier in the day. If all of that, who was at the house deputy aside, if there were multiple visits to her home in that day, what does that tell you about the the way that she was received when those deputies showed up to the scene later, and the temperament and the way she was treated when they got to the.
Well, you know, it's gonna be interesting, and I'm sure we can find out who went on the call earlier. Was it the same officers or not? And then, did they have body camera video then, and so forth, and can we find that out? We're just trying to get to the truth of what happened, man, because what happened on that video was not right, it was senseless, and it was unjustified. And so we want to know everything that led up to her being shot in the face while she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus."
I guess just to go off that, there were already critiques of the way they were handling
Those are issues that we need to try to be compassionate, not heavy-handed.
It was reported with the Kincaid Police Department. In their records, it showed misconduct, serious